This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello. Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. And we broadcast from beautiful Old Town Scottsdale, Arizona. It's either heaven or hell. And right now it's heaven. It's the most beautiful spot. And we have a great program for you. Kim is in South Carolina at our home there. And I'm in Phoenix, or Scottsdale, Arizona. And our guest today comes in from Chile. Now, this is amazing. 100 years ago, this would have taken years to get done. You'd have to send crews all over the world to get this done. But now it's done instantaneously. So that's just magical. So, Kim, you want to introduce our guest, please?
Well, we got a very, very special guest. This is going to be a jam-packed, I can tell already, it's going to be a jam-packed because we got together and we started talking. Our producer's like, whoa, we need to start the show. So our guest today is Simon Black, international investor, entrepreneur, and founder of a very, very great organization called Sovereign Man. I think it's sovereignman.com if you want to check him out. But he has a wealth of experience. He was also in the U.S. Military Academy, West Point, served as an Army intelligence officer. But now he's really dedicated his life to, I would say the best way to explain it is to allow people to have the freedom that they want in their lives. And that's where Sovereign Man comes in. And he can explain that so much more better than I can. And I want to welcome Simon Black to the show. Welcome, Simon.
Thanks very much. Great to see you guys again.
We got, he's in blueberry harvest now in Chile.
That's right. Yeah, it's just despite this less than glamorous, very boring white background behind me. I'm at a basically 1,100 acre farm in central Chile, about 250 kilometers south of the capital. And a company that I founded here some years ago is a very large blueberry producer. So we just started the harvest about a week and a half ago. So it's interesting. There's hundreds of people just outside the window there out harvesting blueberries. It's a great company. It's a great business, and it's delicious. But pleased to be here and appreciate the invitation.
Well, I hope they're wearing masks and social distancing. You know what I mean?
Well, I would say at least the nice thing about is when you have 1,100 acres, it's actually kind of you sort of socially distanced by default, anyways. But the tone here is a lot more easygoing than in a lot of other places where they want to lock everybody down and take away all of your rights and all of your freedom. It's a little bit easier going down here now than it is in a lot of places in North America and Europe, at least at the moment.
And Simon, you didn't just go to Chile. You've been in Chile for quite a while. So why Chile? Why are you there?
Well, really for the business end of it, it's for what I wanted to do in agriculture, this was an ideal place, just with respect to, you guys love real estate. It's kind of a real estate play, right? So you've got the land costs down here are so much cheaper than they are in North America. The price per acre of farmland here is remarkably cheaper than it is in North America. And yet the price that you get for the production, what we produce is the same because it's an international market. So you have international prices. So obviously it means your return on investment is really high. In a way, it would almost be like as if you had an apartment building and you could bring all of your tenants to a foreign country paying exactly the same rate, and yet buy the apartment building in a foreign country for a fraction of the price. Obviously, your yield's going to go through the roof, and so that was sort of the investment thesis behind this. And so far so good.
So we want to get into a subject near and dear our hearts here. Is this Mark? This is Cuomo, the governor of New York. He just gets awarded an Emmy for bullshit. I'm going, are you kidding me? What is going on? This guy gets an Emmy. He had the most COVID deaths of any person going because he stuffed sick people in with old people, and he gets an Emmy. And De Niro and what's that other guy's name? I forget his name, but these commies out of Hollywood, they go, oh, he's such a good actor. And I think that's what he is. He's an actor. But anyway, Simon, what I want to get is you're a West Point graduate, which is a very prestigious military school, and people don't know that. And I went to Kings Point, you went to West Point, and I was a Marine and you're an Army guy. Isn't this what we fought against? What's going on in America? Communism?
Yeah, I mean, you know what it is? There's so many people that think this is a great idea now, and there's nobody really to keep them in check anymore, because anybody that tries to, is what we were talking about earlier. You know, you have the big tech companies now that, you know, kind of funny, like it used to sort of be more libertarian bent. They sort of stood for personal freedom. That's the whole idea, is that the technology was there to empower the individual and create, you know, really amplify voices. And now it's just sort of become, you know, like a censorship board for the Chinese Communist Party. You know, they're there to shut down discussions and prevent, you know, and it's not even about the election. You know, God forbid you say something that goes against, you know, the World Health Organization, you know, about COVID, because then, you know, Google's going to come in and shut you down. Zuckerberg's going to come in and shut you down. Dorsey's going to come in and shut you down. Then, you know, you have anything to say about the election that happens to go, you know, in the direction that they don't want you to go. You can say whatever you want about the election, as long as it's not something that's, you know, favorable to the guys that they don't like, you know. So if you can say whatever you want, is like, you know, if you're pro Biden, it's fine. You can get away with anything. You know, but if you're not allowed to, you know, to even say things that are rational. We were talking about earlier. You can't even ask a question anymore. You can't look at things and go, well, that seems kind of unusual to me that, you know, truckloads of ballots sort of just materialize out of nowhere at 3 o'clock in the morning. Not even to make any accusations or assertions, but just to ask a question and say, can we at least ask, is this normal? Is this sort of standard practice? What's the protocol for this? Just normal questions you might want to ask, because look, I'm 42 years old. I'd never seen that before in my life. In 42 years, I've never seen that. And so it seems to me that it's at least worth a rational person going, well, let's at least talk about this, but you're not allowed to. You can't ask the question. You're denounced as, you know, that's a crazy person. You know, Twitter shuts you down, Google shuts you down, you know, MSNBC cuts to a commercial. Nobody wants to hear it. And like we were talking about earlier, to me, this is a huge problem. In the United States of America, you're not allowed to ask a question anymore. You can't even ask a question in the United States of America. And I think that really gives a sense for, you know, you can't ask a question. They give Cuomo an Emmy. You know, he gets to write a book about leadership, leading the way and killing the most people from the coronavirus. This is the book. This guy is writing a book telling other people how to lead, right? But you can't, other people aren't allowed to ask a question, right? And this is sort of the state of where things are right now. And it's gotten to this point, where
Simon,
you're right. I think they're
Simon.
Yeah.
Now look, West Point is pretty hardcore. I mean, to get into West Point, you've got to be pretty down the line hard. And then you go and you become a military intelligence officer. Where did you serve after that?
I bounced around. I was actually, my first duty station was down in Cochise County, Arizona, where it's the home of the intelligence corps. Yeah. So I don't know if you've ever been down there. Yeah, exactly. Huachuca. Yeah. Yeah. So they used to every Friday, they would still do a reenactment of the shootout of the OK Corral at high noon, every Friday. I don't know if they still do that or not. They probably don't. I go, Wyatt Earp has to social distance now, from all those guys. So, it's just, it's just what a travesty that this whole thing has turned into. And it's funny. We were just actually writing about this today. I read about this. This is a study in the New England Journal of Medicine, and you'll appreciate this, Robert. In the New England Journal of Medicine, they did a study where they actually used Marines, because they said, we need people that are disciplined, that are hardcore. We can make rules, and they're going to follow them. And so they went to the Marines, and so they had a bunch of, if I remember the study, they put a bunch of Marines on lockdown. And so you tell the Marines, like, you're on lockdown. And the Marines are going to follow instructions. They're going to follow the orders, right? And they actually did a comparison, and they said, well, the idea was to study and see how effective are the lockdowns. You're going to take people's freedom away with the idea that we've got to, save society, save our civilization from this virus. And so let's see actually how effective that is. And so they did like any real experiment. They had a control group and they had the experimental group. And they said, okay, we'll see people that follow lockdown orders. And we went to the Marines because the Marines are going to follow the orders. And then they had other people that they knew aren't going to follow the orders, or people that were just out there roaming around society. And let's see what the infections rate were. And what they found was actually negligible, and the Marines on lockdown are actually spread the virus ever so slightly more than the control group that wasn't in lockdown. And you kind of look at this, and then you hear these people like Cuomo, and they say, we're going to listen to the scientists. We're going to listen to the scientists, right? But say, well, there's the science, right? There's the science. But you know, the funny thing is they want to listen to one science, right? They want to listen to the science that, you know, keeps them in power and lets them have dictatorial control over everybody, but not any kind of sensible science, you know, that lets people keep their jobs and live their lives.
Oh, that when they hired Marines to do that they went subhuman there because of lack of brain power.
And there's more and more science coming out and more studies that are showing that people that are locked down and people that are it's the people that are indoors more that are getting COVID than the people that are not. So people that are locked down, it's having a negative effect versus, just to your point, but they don't want to hear that.
Well, and this says nothing about, you know, suicide rates, depression, domestic abuse, drug use, alcoholism, child abuse. And you know, the fact that you've got children in their most important developmental years that have been ripped away from their lives, from their opportunity to grow and develop. And the opportunity cost of that is incalculable. I mean, how much people's lives will be impacted, especially, you know, young people, especially children. You know, what is, you know, you look at this and say, like, somebody that's 6, you know, and they're supposed to grow and learn and so forth, and you take away all of their stimulus and all of these things, you know, to be able to grow and actually develop into a young person, the opportunity cost is incalculable, right? And it's just one of those things that say, we cannot lose a single person to COVID and so forth. It's like bullshit, all these things. I mean, if the priority was always, we must save lives, then they'd go and they'd say, okay, well, what are the biggest causes of death? You know, heart disease, you know, so what are we gonna do? Nobody's allowed to eat beef anymore, you know, which I'm sure would really, you know, please a lot of people that, you know, if beef were outlawed. Or they say, you know, we're gonna get rid of automobiles because, you know, a lot of people die in car crashes and all these things. It's like, now it seems ironic to me that it's perfectly acceptable for somebody to die of pneumonia as long as the pneumonia wasn't caused by COVID, right? If somebody dies of pneumonia, that's okay. But if it's COVID-induced pneumonia, then oh my God, we have to shut down the entire economy for all these sorts of things. And so, you know, and I think now all these politicians and people like Cuomo, they've gotten a taste of the power, and now they feel like they can do whatever you want. And it goes back to what you're saying, Robert. I think. Sorry, go ahead.
I was looking at some stats, you know, because you look at the opinions and you look at the stats. In 2019, they estimated that 606,000 people would die of lung cancer from smoking. 606,000. And I think we're at 300,000. You know, somebody in Phoenix was killed in a motorcycle accident. Of course, he had COVID just before he crashed into the pole or something, you know. But the point here is this, you know, I mean, it is such bullshit. And then I meet Kim, and Kim is running into her girlfriends, and she has 3 girlfriends now. They could pass as triplets. They look the same, they act the same, they, you know, like this. And they're so hardcore, right? I'm going, holy mackerel. Right, Kim? I mean, your girlfriend's like
Yep.
Leslie and
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And I love them dearly. My concern right now is, Simon, if you look at all the media in the US right now, oh my God, every day they're saying more cases, it's getting worse. And they're setting it up. They're totally setting it up for another lockdown. And people die today, and every minute somebody's dying of COVID. It's such BS.
Well, Leslie is married to a Marine pilot also. But he was first round financing in Facebook and Bitcoin. So he's doing pretty well. But Leslie is pretty hardcore, right? I mean, she is so up in arms on this thing.
Oh, she's very mad. She's a fighter. She's a fighter. And that's what I'm hoping for. More people stand up and make their voice heard and speak out. And I would love to see some truth come out of this somewhere. I don't know if that's possible or not, but if whatever the truth is, I'd love to see it.
So anyway, we need to go to a break right now. So when we come back, we'll be joined again with a dear friend of ours, Simon Black. He's out in blueberry land. I think if they outlaw blueberries, you're in trouble. But anyway, you know, I think blueberries spit COVID or something.
Hopefully they won't cancel blueberries.
That's right. So when we come back, we're going to find out what it means to be a sovereign man, simply because years and years and years and years ago, when Kim and I were just getting kind of on the circuit back in the 1990s, we ran into Jim Rogers, and he was talking about being a sovereign man also. And you know, Rogers floats all over the world. He wrote the book Investment Biker and all of this stuff. So today, you know, the people that are trapped are actually trapped in their minds. Do you know what I mean? Today, we are talking to South Carolina and Chile and Phoenix, Scottsdale, Arizona, and people are locked down. That's the insanity of it. So we come back, we're going to find out what it takes to be more of a sovereign human being, where you're not trapped by the idiosyncrasies and ideologies of these whack jobs. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. You can listen to the Rich Dad Radio program anytime, anywhere on iTunes, Android, and YouTube. And please leave your review whenever you listen. And all of our programs are archived at richdadradio.com. We archive them because we're a financial education show. We don't recommend any investments. Anybody says we recommend anything, that's not true. And the reason we archive them is because we, you know, education, repetition is one of the best ways you'll learn. So if you listen to this program again, you'll learn twice as much. Your paradigm of thought will shift. But also if you have friends, family members, and business associates who need some shifting, this would be a good program, especially if they voted for Biden and Kamala and they wear a Mao outfit all day long. But anyway, we're at a most divisive time in my time in history. I've never seen it this bad. I was talking to a young lady the other day, and she says, you know, I have a twin sister. And this young woman says, I travel all over the world. She says, I just travel all over the world. I think she's like 35 or something. And my sister's quite happy to sit someplace in Wisconsin and get her 401k. This is, we're identical twins, but what is so different about us? So as we all know, there's a lot of people who are quite happy to sit in Wisconsin, freeze their butts off and collect their 401k. But other people are traveling the world right now as a sovereign individual. So that's what we want to talk about, is the idea that we're only limited by our thoughts today. Yeah, would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. This is, as you say, Robert, this can be your greatest asset or your greatest liability. And I'm seeing it every single day. People that are talking themselves out of their freedoms and talking themselves into basically imprisonment and entrapment and all of this. But the mind and your thoughts and your emotions make all the difference.
And what's really bad about how bad this is this will be come out after Thanksgiving, but they're going to take Thanksgiving away. You know what I mean? Give me a break. I mean, you know, the turkey is going to put a mask on the old turkey or something. What are they thinking? But anyway, with that, Simon Black, you're the sovereign man, you know, like Jim Rogers was a sovereign man. Kim and I travel all over the world. We do business all over the world. So what shifted for you, you know, Simon? Why did you say, I'm out of here. I'm going to be a free human being?
You know, it was actually when I was in the military. And I will never forget the day, you probably remember it, when they brought Colin Powell out to testify to the United Nations and say, you know, he's got those weapons. And I think a lot of people that night were looking at that saying, this is bullshit. And at that point it was obvious. And, you know, and Powell, you know, went on later and say, you know, call that the biggest mistake of his life, you know, a black eye, black stain on an otherwise impeccable career, you know, and he was right. And I think he just sort of knew that it was, you know, shaky and, you know, but just saluted and tried to play the good soldier and, you know, follow orders. But I think he had a lot of sort of moral and ethical misgivings about it. And a lot of people that night, and I was one of them, looked at it and said, no, this is wrong. It made me realize that
yeah. So Simon is a military information intelligence officer, and he actually he knew what was really going on. And Colin Powell, explain who he is or was.
Well, Colin Powell at the time was the Secretary of State, but prior to that, a lot of people might be too young to remember, but he used to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the early 1990s. And so he was a famous guy. He had far and away the most credibility of anybody on the international stage in the Bush administration at the time. And so that's the reason they sent Colin Powell to the United Nations. Yeah, U.S. Army 4-star general. Yeah.
So that's the difference. And the reason I say that is because as a Marine pilot, we had to take orders from Washington, and we're flying in Vietnam and going, where are they getting their information from? This is not true. And so you were kind of in the same position, being an Army intelligence officer. And what you see and hear are not the same Washington saying.
Right, exactly. And so you're kind of looking at this, and that was when it really hit me, that it's a lie. And they're about to go to war based on a lie. And it made me think, well, if they're lying about this, then what else are they lying about?
Amen.
Turned out to be quite a bit. Yeah, quite a bit. So that kind of, I went down this little rabbit hole of just, getting my hands on everything that I could, reading as much as I could of everything, not even stuff that I necessarily agreed with or disagreed with. I just wanted to read as much as I could to really expand my mind. And it's just what you guys were saying, Kim, that's really where it all starts. And to me, it's not necessarily even about travel or going out and seeing the world. It's really what you do here. It's what you do in your mind. And I think this is actually, not to dwell on what we were talking about earlier, but I think this is actually a big part of the problem today is that, you were saying, Robert, that it's the most divisive time that you can remember. And I think it's because really people they draw lines, they take sides, they're not willing to ever really have a discussion or concede anything or understand, the other side. And I think, to truly be, I think, an independent person, independent thinker, I think it's important to try and, at least get an understanding of as much as you possibly can and open your mind far beyond what's right in front of your face, whether it's your geography or your, personal ideology and so forth. And I kind of joke with people sometimes. I say, there's probably some things that I agree with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez about. Now, for the life of me, I can't think of a single example, but who knows? Maybe we're both really irritated with the Dallas Cowboys right now. There's something we can agree about. I don't know. But I think, when people just say, they're sort of against people and against personalities and they sort of dig their heels in, what it really creates is an intellectual closed-mindedness. And I think that's where we stop growing as people, is when we close our mind off to other ideas, especially before you understand it well enough to be able to form an opinion and then, properly, render an opinion based on facts as opposed to, as opposed to just some gut feeling or opinion. So I think that's a big part of just being a sort of a sovereign person, is just being really independent-minded and open-minded and trying to learn as much as you can, even from people that you don't, think you might not agree with.
So we'll talk about, you have a second passport. And the reason that Simon puts on these fabulous programs, pre-COVID, of course, but every time I went to his programs, and of course they were not on U.S. soil for some reason, Simon, I can't understand why he didn't do that. But I would go offshore with Simon, and I would hear things that nobody should hear about, because most Americans, they're like this is, oh, no, don't tell me. And so I was at one of Simon's Sovereign Man conferences. He's talking about second passports and all this. And I was still at the stage going, what the heck's he talking about? I understood second passports, but I didn't really know why I should have one. And Kim and I are now looking at second passports, right, Kim?
Yes, absolutely. We just want options. We want options. And I want to say to your point too, Simon, about independent thinking is so lacking right now. And unfortunately, I think one of the problems too is so many people are acting off of opinions and not facts, and they're not even their own opinions. They don't even know what their opinion is, but it's all emotion. It's all of this craziness is driven by emotion, not independent thinking. And we often say one of the most important things you can do is think for yourself, question everything, which is what you did. And I think that's a great starting point to be a sovereign man or sovereign woman today. I think that's crucial.
It's what you said, Kim. It's just really about having another option. If you have, when you think about your passport confers citizenship, and your citizenship, basically entitles you to certain benefits and, theory also certain liabilities. Everybody that's a citizen in the United States as certain benefits of being able to live and work and so forth in the United States, and that's a pretty big benefit. At the same time, you're also signed up for some pretty big liabilities, like your share of the $60+ trillion in financial liabilities that's owed by the U.S. federal government, your liability of the taxes that they want to charge in their sole discretion, whenever they want, all those sorts of things. You were talking about, our events and, the things that people don't really like to hear, and to be clear, there's things like second passports, they're 100% legal. There's nothing about it in the United States that's against the law. As a matter of fact, there's quite a body of law as well as executive orders that demonstrate it's 100% legal to have them, to acquire them. But certain things that are uncomfortable, for example, we stand on stage and, read directly from primary sources, for example, talk about things like Social Security and say, don't take my word for it. This is what the Treasury Secretary of the United States has to say, and this thing is going to be bankrupt, before the decade is out. They're going to, the trust funds are going to run out of money. This isn't me saying this. This is the Treasury Secretary of the United States. And, some of these things are very uncomfortable for people to hear because they sort of stick their head in the sand and think like, oh, when I retire, I'm going to do, they have all these plans for what they think their life is going to be. And, suddenly we say, well, guess what? That's probably not going to happen, and there are a lot of these things that are facts, not opinions, that might actually throw a monkey wrench in that. So here are some potential solutions to that. And the idea behind a second passport is to say, well, you know what, instead of having all of my eggs in one basket, I'm going to start diversifying a little bit. And the second passport is really a way to diversify, because it means that no matter what happens, or no matter what happens, even things that whatever doesn't happen, you'll always have another place to go. You'll have another place where you can live and work and invest and start a business and bring your family and do anything that you want to do, that welcomes you with open arms. We have the right to do that. And I think for a lot of people, that benefit might have been interesting, but almost cerebral, academic. And then 2020 came around and all of a sudden everybody was locked down in their homes, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't travel anywhere. But if you had a second passport, you could, right? You couldn't go to this place or that place, so forth. But if you had a second passport, suddenly these other countries saying, well, of course we'll welcome, if you're a citizen, of course we'll welcome you, right? So you could do these things with a second passport. I think 2020 has sort of showed that the benefit of having those things is actually pretty phenomenal.
I honestly think while Simon's still on, because we're running out of time here, I go to his Sovereign Man conference. And I'm listening to all these different, he had all these different people from all over the world, and they're pitching their deal as to which passport to get. And I'm sitting there going, holy mackerel. Well, if you come to our country, we'll give you this deal and this. And I'm going, holy, it was like an auction. But the best one was the one from Georgia. And Georgia is a former Soviet satellite and all this stuff. But the first thing I noticed is the people who actually have been in communist countries like Georgia and Bulgaria and those countries, they're the most anti-communism. They're the most vehemently anti-communism. And Kim and I have friends who escaped from Hungary back in the '56 Hungarian Revolution. They hate communism. And where Kim is right now, there's a huge Cuban contingency. They hate communism, and they hate Ocasio-Cortez on top of it, and she's one of them. You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, but when I was at the Sovereign Man, this woman from Georgia stands up there. She says, "Georgia's the best." I'm going, que pasa? Why is Georgia the best? She says, "Well, when the Russians came to our capital, we stopped them at the gates." And I went, "That's a sales pitch I never heard before." They can stop the Russians at the gate. I said, Georgia went high on my list of passports. Anyway, that's the kind of stuff that Simon puts on. And I hope you get back to putting those conferences on again, because we really do need to open our minds. Any comments on that, Kim?
Well, I just wanted one comment. And actually, in terms of your events, are you doing online events? Are you doing digital events?
We do for, we have some online things from time to time for our certain of our members, and I think we'll be in pretty short order getting back to the in-person stuff. We have most of our members who actually kind of did some polls, and most people said, yeah, we'd love to do something in person. The problem is just finding the place to do it, because everybody's just locked down. You get these hotels that say, well, you can do an event here but everybody's got to be 6 feet apart, and you can't sit down and have a dinner and all these sorts of things. So it's a complicated time to try and do events, but I think we're going to get it figured out here in the next couple of months.
Here's the question I wanted to ask too is I know you're a very optimistic person and you see opportunities. And so given all that's happening, do you see opportunities coming out of this or that are existing now to the average person? What could somebody do today?
Yeah, look, of course there are. There always are. You could look at I was actually talking to Kenny about this not too long ago. I mean, somebody's going to have to figure out what to do with all this commercial real estate, for example. I mean, there's a lot of office property that is never going to be used again, at least for office purposes. And so that needs to be repurposed somehow. And I think somebody's going to make a ton of money on that sort of thing. But I mean, no matter what happens in the world, I think there's always opportunity. And there's companies that fall into bankruptcy, and there's opportunities to pick up very high quality assets. Out of bankruptcy. I think there's always going to be opportunity out there. And it's one thing to say, I'm just going to stay home and be angry, but it's another to say, you know what, I'm going to change my way of thinking and go out and look for the opportunities. And I think that's a better approach.
That could be the biggest opportunity of all for somebody to say, hey, maybe I better do something different. Maybe I better look at a new way of thinking. Maybe I better change some of the things I've been doing. This could be this alone could be the opportunity.
Open your brains up. Anyway, Simon, I want to thank you again. You can get his free newsletter. It's called Notes from the Field at his website. What is your website again?
It's sovereignman.com.
Sovereignman.com. Please check it out, because if you want your mind open, Simon has done a great job of opening my mind to things I never saw as a loyal American. And like I said, when that woman from Georgia said, we stopped the Russians at the border, I'm going, holy mackerel, how do you do that? You know what I mean? Anyway, so there's so much going on. And, Simon is a West Point graduate. I'm a Kings Point graduate, a Marine. I fought in Vietnam. He fought in Middle East. And we're still fighting it. The trouble is they're in our offices today. They're elected officials. And that's what's really frightening. With that, Simon, thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, guys. Great to see you again.
So we come back, we'll be going into, Kim and I will have some final comments on this very important subject called being sovereign individuals. And it really is time to open our minds. So we come back, coming back with our final words. Thank you very much. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. Once again, you can listen to the Rich Dad Radio program anytime, anywhere on iTunes, Android, and YouTube. And please leave us a review anytime you listen. All of our programs are archived at richdadradio.com. We archive them because we are a financial education company. We do not make recommendations. However, we ask you to listen to this program again, because if you listen to it again, you'll pick up twice as much. But also your friends, family members, and business associates, especially somebody who's hardcore, either a socialist, communist, or I don't know, whatever they are today. But America has changed. America has changed dramatically. So that's why go to richdadradio.com, listen to this program. It's Simon Black. He's a West Point graduate, and he was in Army intelligence, and that's what he said about Colin Powell. I said the same thing, because when I was flying in Vietnam, what we heard from Washington wasn't what was going on in the field. And that's when I turned also. I said, I'm not going to participate in this bullshit anymore. So with that, I want to throw it to Sarah. What's your comment, our producer here?
So it's a great show. Always great to hear from Simon. I think he's been on some real estate cruises with you guys, like he's traveled with you guys. So very, close friend of Rich Dad Company. But I think two things I took away. One, his perspective. I think you asked the question, what made him become a sovereign man? What was it? And there was that discussion about Colin Powell. I think that if we as Americans don't start questioning our government, we're going to find ourselves in a place of no return. And I liked that perspective that he had. Like, here's a guy here, here's a military guy who had a clean credibility. He was probably the most trusted. And then he himself said, it was all crap. So that's the first thing that I took away. But then the second thing I think was what Kim said about our mindset, that if we don't stop telling ourselves we can't, or, you know, that opportunities don't exist, then they won't. That in order to be free, we have to free those thoughts in our mind.
Correct. That's the most important lesson.
Yeah,
Kim, thoughts?
yeah, I just think one of the healthiest things people can do today is to, as Simon said, be an independent thinker. The U.S. is changing, as you said, Robert, and are you going to change? Or, you know, is this an opportunity for you to go, oh God, I better start doing something differently? But the healthiest thing I think we can do is just start questioning everything and start thinking, as Simon said, when he started out, he just started questioning everything and researching and getting the facts and not just operating off of thoughts and emotions and opinions, as so many people do. I just think it's a healthy attitude. That's one thing that's one of my biggest takeaways, is I'm going to even start questioning more and digging even deeper.
Yeah, question what the media is pumping out. You know, like Trump says it's all fake anyway. So, I mean, he started that. It's his fault. But anyway, I was just, you know, like with Simon, I've told Kim the story many times, is that when we were in Vietnam, we always went by body count. Oh, America's winning because we shot 3,000 Viet Cong and we only lost 200, you know. Next day, well, we shot 6,000 Viet Cong and we only lost 100. That's how they ran the war. And I'm going out there and I said, I don't see any 3,000 dead people, you know, I mean, because we're flying right over the battlefields. And I think one day, the day I changed, we're on an aircraft carrier. I'm sitting in the ready room, and I used to call him Colonel Happy Feet. He was Mr. Positive, and I hate positive people. This guy's up there dancing around because he's trying to get to be a general or something. But he's talking about how America's winning, all this bullshit. And I'm in Vietnam in '72. And I'm going, well, that's not what I see. I see it from the air. They're kicking our asses. They're kicking our asses. And so I raised my hand, and this was the end of my career as a Marine. I said, you know, Colonel, I have a quick question. Why do their Vietnamese fight harder than our Vietnamese? He said, what are you saying? I said, Colonel, we might be on the wrong side. And with that, it was over. And, you know, so sometimes you look out the window and you go, that's not what's going on. And that was the end of it. So Kim has known what it's like for me to get back in good graces with my fellow Marines as we went to the November 10th, 2020 Marine Corps birthday ball. They still welcome me back, right, Kim?
They do. Yes, they do. But what you're telling me reminds me of the time we were in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and we started getting phone calls from our friends. And I think this is part of why Americans sometimes are hesitant to travel overseas, because the media makes it like all the countries outside the US are dangerous and you don't want to go there. And we started getting all these calls while we're in Malaysia, and it's like, are you okay? Are you okay? Or can you get out? Where are you getting out? Where's your next flight? And we're like, what the heck are you talking about? Oh, all the riots and the protests and this mass violent protest that's going on. We're like, what are you talking about? There were 50 people having a peaceful protest in the town square. That was it. And the US media made it sound like Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia was on fire. And that was a big wake up call for me, going, wow, they do not report anything that's really happening. So
Kim, that reminds me during the summer, and I think it was in Minneapolis, there was a police precinct on fire, and the CNN reporter standing in front of the police precinct totally ablaze, going, see, mostly peaceful protests going on around here. Like this. So yes, I agree with you. What the media reports is not true.
What's going to bring ratings? That's what they're going to do. And let's pollute your mind to the way they want you to think.
Yeah, well, CNN used to be, you know, I used to have tremendous respect for Ted Turner, because he drove a 12-meter yacht and won the America's Cup. I went to school to sail 12 meters in New York. But CNN has turned into communist news network, you know, or continuous negative news network. And they really thrive on making things look horrible when they really aren't that bad. Or they lie about things that are really horrible when I don't know, I just don't trust them. I think that's the worst thing.
Yeah.
Same as this election right now, I don't trust it. I don't care who wins right now. I'll forever never trust the election process. I think that's the casualty.
And I think the other casualty, which we were talking about at the start of the show, was losing our right to free speech and being censored because we're not agreeing with what the media and what those in power want us to, we're not towing the line. We're questioning it and we're rebelling against it. And that's the biggest casualty.
You canceled the subscription, right?
To a magazine that I've been subscribing to for probably 6-7 years, and all of a sudden within the last 8 issues, I notice it's gone very one-sided, very biased against Trump, all pro-COVID. It's a terrible thing. I got a text today that said every minute in the U.S. somebody is dying of COVID. I'm like, really? I mean, I don't trust any of those numbers. It's sad. It's sad where I don't trust the media. I don't trust the governments. I just don't. It's sad. It's really hard to figure out what's real and what's fake.
And even in the investment news, I was watching CNBC, and they're a communist organization also. They were bragging about Dick's Sporting Goods, this innocent sporting goods store. Their sales are up and all that. And the reason is because they stopped selling guns.
Oh, BS.
Second Amendment.
That's ridiculous.
It's Second Amendment.
It's up because everybody's doing exercise at home and they're outside exercising because they can't get to the gyms. Come on. Oh, that's ridiculous. It's frustrating.
So anyway, sports fans out there, we always say all coins have 3 sides, heads, tails, and the other side, and the edge of it. So stand on the edge, look at both sides, and make up your mind. I want to thank Simon Black, Sovereign Man. I would love to have him get back in operation because his conferences definitely open up your mind. So thank you all for listening to the Rich Dad Radio Show, and check you out next time. Thank you.